All right, and good morning, you beautiful people. It is Friday. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the week. And it's just me today. So, yeah, in fact, I just got off the phone with Cameron. We were doing our morning show prep, and so the way that happens, morning, Trish. The way that happens, Cameron's usually already working by about 5 o'clock in the morning, and he goes out and he does his thing, and then he just takes his lunch break at 8:30 so we could do the show. So we do show prep. He's out doing his job, working, and he's on the phone with me. And then he finishes up what he's doing, gets in the truck, takes his lunch break, and we do the show. We were talking about this morning's show. We're going to be talking a little bit about I'm going to be talking about the hands up, don't nuke thing, and Schrodinger's gun a little bit, and then we're going to do a regular Firearms Friday. We're going to go through some DRT, some DGUs. Hopefully we find a few DRTs. In fact, let's go ahead and put the scorecard up. Oh, I don't have the scorecard set for the solo screen. Whoops. So, we'll muddle through. Anyway, so suddenly one of the managers at the facility he's working this morning, his next stop, which he was going to do as soon as he got off the show. Hey man, do you have anything for fleas? I heard poor Cameron's crestfallen. Just, yeah, Lowry, I don't guess I get to do the show this morning. Yeah, okay, it's cool. I get it, man. I get it. So, all right. Well, good morning. It is Friday, like I said. Here we go. Let's start with this wonderful, wonderful meme here. Schrodinger's gun, simultaneously useless against the military and a weapon of war that no civilian should own. Okay, so yesterday we covered Hands Up, Don't Nuke, Joe Biden threatening to nuke American citizens. And I think we did a pretty good covering of it. Alex from Polytech even commented about it on the video yesterday. And it's been a hell of a good week for us because earlier this week we had end of last week we did a show about the oh God, what's her name? Ivory something. The reporter, the first reporter, because there's been more now, but the first reporter to basically out her own network on air, get fired, and then come out through Veritas with a bunch of insider information. So that video did dramatically better than most of our videos, and we saw a sharp climb in subscribership off of the tails of that video, and that's awesome. And then yesterday's video didn't do as well as the one about Ivory Hecker. That's her name. Didn't do as well as the one about Ivory Hecker, but it did outperform most of our more recent videos, and that was fantastic. But there's a little bit that I didn't quite get into yesterday that I'd like to touch on this morning. The Schrodinger's gun meme is hilarious. It really is. But I think that what Joe Biden said about F-15s and nuclear weapons in civilian hands is more telling than we really gave adequate coverage to yesterday. There's three things I think that I want to cover on that. First of which is, if Biden honestly believes that armed citizens are not a threat to a corrupt government, which by the principles laid out by our founding fathers should be abolished and replaced. And I think it was Jefferson that said you should, I'm paraphrasing, but basically you should be deeply concerned anytime 20 years passes without such an abolition and replacement. Now, in all fairness, I don't think that we need to raise arms against the government and burn it to the ground every 20 years, despite any sexual excitement that prospect might elicit in me. But at least every 20 years, you should vote the entire government out. In fact, if I could change, one of the many things that I would love to change if I could, is that I would get rid of the staggered terms so that it is easier to vote out the entire elected body at one time. One election, replace the entire mechanism. Because the best you can hope for from an election, from an election is that the new incompetent bastard who goes to hold the spot that you're sending him to is removing another incompetent and corrupted, malicious human being before that person has time to become entrenched as well as incompetent and malicious. You look at your Nancy Pelosi's, your Chuck Schumer's, your, Joe Biden's. They've been entrenched in the government apparatus for decades. In fact, all three of the people I just mentioned have been in office longer than I've been alive. And when you're talking about politicians in office longer than I've been alive, it's not forever, but if you've got a white beard, longer than you've been alive is too damn long for a politician to have been in office. So, not even the term limits thing. I see, Krista, you just mentioned term limits. I'm all for term limits, absolutely. Well, no, not absolutely, but that's a little complex. Let me back off of that because I want to focus on this. The staggering admissions by Joe Biden with his statements about arming citizens with F-15s and nuclear weapons is that he and his ilk do not consider armed citizens to be a national security risk. He also mentioned crime statistics in high gun control cities and made the point that gun control does not work in those cities. This is a staggering admission by Joe Biden that the only remaining purpose for gun control is to disarm and victimize lawful citizens. That's not complicated. Next, that our founding fathers were very clear that the government should be abolished and replaced regularly, and that the point to the Second Amendment is that the people should be as well armed as the government itself. Right? Given that, then what we learn from Joe Biden is that he simply does not like the founding fathers. Which, I mean, let's not pretend like we should be surprised by that. He was Barack Obama's vice president, and Obama was very clear that he does not like the Constitution, right? And this is generally true of Democrats. They dislike the United States Constitution because it limits government. And the rest of us are sitting here like, that's a feature, not a bug. That's the point. That is the entire point. Right? Many times on the show I've talked about the perversion of language, and we still use the language discussing the dichotomy of partisanship in this country. We talk about conservatives and liberals. And so I won't stay on this for too long, but just across the pond, outside of the U.S., almost without exception, what it means to be a conservative is that you are conservative of the establishment. Now, it also means that in the United States, but you're talking about two very different establishments. And understand in this context, what I mean by establishment, I'm not talking about the establishment as in the government as it is currently constructed. What a conservative is conservative of outside of the U.S. is the monarchy. They're conservative of the traditional form of government, which has mutated over time, and the political objective of their party is to retain authority at something akin to a monarchy. Right? And then the liberal, in that context, seeks to wrestle more liberty from the monarchy, from the government. In the United States, a conservative is conservative of the principles of the Constitution. And the Constitution of the United States is the most liberal, which is not to say left-wing, but to say liberty-focused governmental action of organization in all of history. What a conservative in the United States is supposed to be conservative of is liberty, is a founding principle, a document which restrains the government, constricts its growth and its size, restricts it from to quote the Supreme Court, the nebulous penumbra of unenumerated rights. Right? Like Cameron and I were talking this morning about a little bit about the First Amendment auditors that I watch out there, and one of the mistakes I hear the auditors make often is they say, "I have the Constitution gives me the right to film in public." That's incorrect. Your position is serviceable, but your phrasing must be correct in this case. And what it is I am able to film in public. I am also able to hide away in private and protect my private information. To say that I have the right to do that, and more to the point, to say that I have the constitutional right to do that, it is more correct to say that I have the constitutionally guaranteed right to do that, which is correctly to say that I am able to do a thing, and the Constitution forbids the government from criminalizing that behavior. The Constitution doesn't give me rights. The Constitution restrains the government from taking rights away. Just like we've said before, I would do away with all licenses. Period. I would do away with them. Ooh, anarchy, Steve, you guys are, yeah. I'm not trying to catch another yeeting here, guys. Oh, the things I can imagine. Oh, they keep me in bed at night. Anyway, so that's two. Joe admitted that his interest in gun control is not national security or even curbing crime. It's strictly disarming lawful citizens. And something to be very clear on as well is criminals, especially convicted criminals who have served time in prison, they lean Democrat. One of the big reasons the Democrats want to disarm law-abiding citizens is law-abiding citizens are not their voting base. They want you weak. They want to disarm the Republican voting base so that their BLM and Antifa terrorists who are being allowed to commit crimes without consequences, right? They've arrested many of these criminals on charges up to and including murder and simply released them. Just refused to prosecute. Oh, excuse me. we're still getting over a little bit of crud in the house. The girls, I think the girls brought us home a little bit of a cough from the from Girl Scout camp last week. But don't worry. I farted yesterday and proved that nobody in the house has COVID, because they were all offended. So the Democrat voting base, they all have one thing in common as far as what leads a person to become a Democrat, and it's this. At the core principle of their political philosophy is the simple acceptance of the premise that it is better, or it is morally preferable to take by force than to earn by labor. It's not just that they're comfortable with, at a bare minimum, when you vote for a Democrat, at a bare minimum, you're saying, I am comfortable with using a firearm to confiscate property from the rightful owner of that property for the purpose of using that property in a way that is not the preferred use pattern of the original owner of the property. At a minimum, you're comfortable with that. That's why criminals tend to vote Democrat, because at a minimum, they're morally comfortable with using force or the threat thereof to deprive you of property and liberty. It's as simple as that. The Democrat political philosophy is rooted in using force and violence to cause harm. So Joe admitted that the gun control agenda is not about national security or crime statistics. He admitted that he dislikes the founding documents and the founding principles. And he admitted that he agrees, in fact, if not in principle, with the original assertion of the founding fathers that in order to overthrow the government when it becomes destructive to the ends of liberty, the people should be armed with the same technology with which the government is also armed. Right? Those are three very key and significant admissions. And like I've said, and I'm going to continue to say until we've had another election that just cleans all this garbage out of our system, if that's even possible anymore. The best thing you can say about the Biden administration is that as a result of the Biden administration, not only do you no longer have to take them seriously, it is no longer reasonable to take the Democrats seriously. It is no longer reasonable to even go so far as to suggest that a Democrat voter is capable of operating in good faith. So, Steve points out they surrendered the Capitol to an unarmed guy in a Viking hat. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Joe's assertion that you need F-15s and nuclear weapons to take on the U.S. government. Well, Joe, I understand that you're a draft-dodging old shitbag who's never seen a legitimate conflict in your entire life. I understand that you have failed for your entire life to serve your country. When the question of taking the oath was brought before you, you said, I'll take an oath to the Constitution, I'll raise my hand, and then, instead of picking up a rifle and saying the soldier's creed and choosing to deploy, engage in close combat with, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America, you chose to harass, incarcerate, tax, and otherwise abuse the citizens of this great nation for nearly half a century. You staggering shitbag. But, sure, you think that because you have no experience in what conflict is, you think that a handful of ARs just aren't a threat to the United States military. Have you ever shot a running man who was shooting at you, let alone several of them? Have you ever legitimately saved a life? No. No, but you did approve funding to the ATU lab. Yeah, you did that. Good on you. All right. I'm about to rabbit hole, so let me pop over. Let's do some stories. All right, story number 1. Witness says, "Oh, hey, scorecards. I forgot to clear the scorecard. Let me do that real quick. What? We can't have -1 DOTs. Oh God, I hope there's a story in here that proves that wrong. Wouldn't that be funny? Okay. Witness says Good Samaritan shot the gunman in Old Town Arvada. Arvada Cadavra? What? Arvada, Colorado. On Tuesday, the Arvada Police Department chief identified John Hurley as the Good Samaritan who was killed during Monday's shooting in Old Town. The chief called Hurley a true hero. Witness told Denver that Hurley confronted the gunman. Wait a minute. The chief identified John Hurley as the Good Samaritan who was killed. Hurley was 40 years old and lived in Golden. A friend described him as an outspoken activist. Hurley, veteran Arvada police officer Gordon Beasley, and the gunman, Roland Troik, were killed in the shooting on Monday afternoon in Old Town Square. Ooh. Well, that's a damn pity. We lost 2 good guys to take out 1 bad guy. That's not good math. Oh, but I feel like it'd be disrespectful to give him a BRM. We're going to call that one a DRT. They did take out the bad guy. I'm a big fan. I think it was Patton said nobody ever accomplished anything by dying for their country. Your job is to make the other poor son of a bitch die for his. I'm a firm believer in that. Right? When I joined the Army, it's not that I signed up to give my life for the country. It's that I signed up to take lives for the country. Understanding that losing my own was a risk is different than saying that's what I want to do. Right? No risk, no reward. So, man. And so there's said Hurley is a true hero who likely disrupted what could have been a larger loss of life. And there's the man himself. And looks like we've got Cody Souls, a longtime friend of Hurley, released a statement. John was a good guy. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was an outspoken activist and wanted to help people and create change in his community. I was saddened to hear about his passing. So apparently we've got a good guy that did the right thing, and it didn't go well enough for him. I might have to earmark this one and take another look at it and talk about it some more later. Allow ads on Sacramento Fine. I'm probably never going to visit your website again, so I'll let you put some ads up this one time. Okay, citizen shoots suspect accused in Carmichael truck crowbar rampage. Crowbar rampage. One pedestrian was killed and 3 other victims were injured in an apparent rampage Monday morning in Carmichael involving the driver of a pickup truck who allegedly rammed 2 people, exited his vehicle, and attacked 2 others while wielding a crowbar and a gun, authorities said. Damn, son. The suspect struck 2 pedestrians with his vehicle, hit a third person with a crowbar, and injured a fourth with either the crowbar or the suspect's gun before being shot himself by another citizen, Sacramento County Sheriff's Office personnel said. The suspect was hospitalized and is in custody. Okay, that's a BRM. Back to the range, buddy. You got a bad guy with a gun and a crowbar on a rampage? I mean, as much fun as the headshot is, it's center mass and enough to do the job. All right? Put three in that freaking sweet spot and be done. And that's especially true in a case like this, right? So, when you're talking about self-defense and the actual use of a firearm in self-defense, what you're looking for is stopping, right? You're not necessarily looking for lethal force. Not necessarily. You're looking for stopping force. You want that round to knock them down and hurt them bad enough that they're not going to do anything else. Here's the problem, though. You got a bad guy with a gun and a melee weapon, right? A bludgeon, a crowbar, and a rampage situation. You suddenly have a lot of unknown variables. Is he on drugs? Is he on the kinds of drugs that cause this sort of outrage, rampage activity, and have the added bonus of making him relatively ignorant of pain, making him a legitimately heightened threat, right? You might be talking about somebody in a case like this that's got PCP running through a system, and normally I don't like to deal in hypotheticals, but when being wrong about the hypothetical means that your decisions based on ignoring the possibility of that hypothetical, that greatest probable threat situation, could end in the loss of your own life, then it's time to take the hypothetical seriously. So it is not reasonable to just assume that a person who is acting somewhat unruly is on drugs, right? It's reasonable to include that is a possibility. It's not reasonable to assume it directly. But once you've got a guy wielding 2 weapons and rampaging, it is unreasonable not to assume the worst and prepare accordingly. So it is not sufficient in that case to simply stop the threat. It is reasonable in that case to end the threat. Even if it means firing more rounds than you would under, shall we say, less provocative circumstances. So this one gets a definite BRM. Hey, good on you. You know, armed citizen, good on you for doing the right thing, or at least trying to do the right thing. But this also speaks to why practice. And guys, I know ammo's expensive. There are some options out there. I'm a big fan of having an airsoft gun on hand or a BB gun on hand where I can just do a little target practice in the backyard. It's not the same. It's not the same amount of kick. Well, I've got some gas-powered airsoft guns where the recoil is reasonably approximated. But those are AR platforms, so you talk about the recoil on an AR platform being reasonably approximated. AR platforms don't have recoil, not in any significant way to speak of. But something like that, or they've got those wonderful laser toys out now, and it's 8:00, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We got 2 on the board. There are some of those wonderful laser inserts and app-supported practice mechanisms where you get, basically it looks like a bullet, but it's a laser pointer that just flashes a laser when you pull the trigger and the hammer, so your hammer hits the on button basically, and it flashes the laser so that you can use an iPad or something like that that's displaying something for the laser to interact with, and all of a sudden you can do your target practice in the living room, right? Now, this is not going to replace training with live rounds. This is not going to replace shoot houses or taking your weapon to the range and physically firing your weapon. Dad says dry fire works well, trigger pull is the key. Yes, up until you've pulled the trigger, everything that matters about making a shot happens before recoil. Once you pull the trigger and the recoil happens, everything that mattered about getting that round on target has already happened. The only thing that the recoil matters for is reacquiring the target after your first shot. But that first shot is the one that matters most. You know, the hope is that one shot gets it to one shot, one kill, right? Hooah. Yeah. Don't run from snipers, you'll just die tired, right? One shot, one kill. So yes, using something like an airsoft gun, a BB gun, the laser device, or just dry fire to practice your basics, right? Your sight picture, steady position, good solid sight picture, breathing, trigger squeeze, right? That's gun control right there. Clear sight picture, steady position, pause in the natural pulmonary valve of your respiratory cycle, and squeeze, don't pull the trigger. It's not hard, but it needs practice. Practice, practice, practice. All right, guys, it's Friday, and we've done a show. The weekend is upon us. I want you to be safe out there. If you get a chance to go do a little practice this weekend, hang on a second. You can't miss fast enough to win. Hey, and Steve, I like that. You can't miss fast enough to win. That's right. And also, there was another story that we didn't get to where somebody fired a warning shot. And you can't miss, okay? Every time you pull the trigger, you're going to hit something. You may not hit what you wanted to, but you're going to hit something, right? So, all that clean sight picture, steady position, breathing, breath control, and steady, slow trigger squeeze. Ladies and gentlemen, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Amen to that. So, don't drive, drink, don't fry bacon naked, sex, drugs, rock and roll, firearms, farm animals, and videotape. No two at the same time. I love you. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there, and we will see you Monday morning.